students for FLT3701. This is your lecturer, Miss M Ramokgopa, first additional language for teaching the foundation phase. Now let's see what we can talk about today. This is my email address, ramokgomm@unisa. Let's talk about this FLT module. This is the outline of the module. The study is organized in 6 study units. Unit 1, Policy Guidelines for Teaching and Learning of a First Additional Language in South Africa. Unit 2, Understanding and Facilitation of Language Skills in the Foundation Phase. Unit 3, Understanding and Interpreting Second Language Policies for Facilitation in the Foundation Phase. Understand Unit 4, you are going to do Understanding and Applying Language Theories and Teaching and Learning and its implication on the teaching language. Unit 5, I think you're already there, teaching language skills using different strategies and methodologies. Unit 6, designing, implementing appropriate tools for assessing the level of language development of learners. But let's look at this module. This module is linked to one of your teaching practice modules, which is TPF 3704. And they have taken you through on how to work on the rubric for the TPF 3704. Before you do that, you familiarize yourself with teaching practice. You evaluate your own work. After that, you complete the evaluation reflection. That is very important. You'll see that when you do TPF 3704, some of the activities are coming from FLT. Please don't call me when you have problems with TPF. Call your lecturer on that one. Okay, let's look at this module. Remember, we looked at different units, but each and every unit has its own outcomes. Please go through these outcomes, outcome 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for each and every unit. Today, we're going to look at outcome 1, outcome 2, and outcome 3. Let's read. Policy guidelines for teaching and learning of FAL in South Africa is analyzed. Outcome 2, in-depth understanding and facilitation of language skills in the foundation phase classroom. Outcome number 3, understanding and interpretation of the second language policies in the facilitation thereof. So outcome 4 and 5, we'll see them later on. That is unit 4, unit 5, and 6. Okay, remember, this is very important. This module is it uses Invigilator app. Please see to it that you understand how to upload on the Invigilator app. But because we're busy with assignment 2, I hope you're done with assignment 1. You are busy with assignment 2, which is due on the 24th of July. Please upload it on Moodle on the correct platform. Don't send it to other platforms. Convert your work to PDF. Just check that you have uploaded correctly. If you haven't uploaded correctly, you'll be coming back to me and say, "Ma'am, I've sent my assignment and whatever." You'll find that maybe we can't find it because you have uploaded it incorrectly. Learn how to upload. Okay, now let's look at unit 1. These are the policies. These are the outcomes of unit 1. Outcomes of the study unit, follow policy guidelines. These are policy guidelines is very key here. And then teaching and learning of FAL in lesson preparation. Lesson preparation is a key element for you teachers. Implement teaching and learning of FAL it's very important to know how you implement. Address different contexts. We know we're living in the very diverse situations, so we need to know how to address different contexts. Hopefully we'll understand that, because at the end of this module, you need to understand why FAL, especially if FAL, as a precursor and a medium of instruction for higher classes. And you need to know how to develop vocabulary, because without the vocabulary, you can't communicate. You can't be fluent in that language. So we want our learners to be fluent. But before I go on, I would like you to know that in most schools in South Africa, IFAL is English First additional language, it's taught in schools. In some schools, you'll find the file is different, but in most schools, it's English. And I'd like us to go back to this Unit 1. Unit 1, it gives you background of IFA. It gives you context of SA schools. It refers you to SA study policy. And it also gives you guidelines that you need to keep in mind as a teacher. These guidelines are very key for your planning. You need to understand what you are working with, who you are working with. You need to understand the environment you are working in. You need to understand the contextual factors. What are other factors that encourage or influence teaching of fun or learning of fun negatively and positively so that you can address that? Creating a responsive context for learning an additional language, responsive environment is key. If it's not responsive, how will your children learn? How will your learners learn? Interactive environment. Foundational strategies, it's important to have an understanding of strategies that you can use as you teach them. Remember, these ones, they come not knowing the language. Okay, let's look at guiding principles for teaching fun. Language acquisition is key. If you don't know the language, it's a serious problem. So here's a question. It says, as teachers, we need to keep certain guidelines in mind. And why is it important for the teacher to introduce language gradually and make learning as fun as possible? You ask yourself that question and say, okay, the statement says, keep guidelines. Why do I have to keep those guidelines? Because fun is not necessarily the home language of the learner. Most of the learners, I said earlier on, they come from different languages, especially in our country where there are so many languages, 11. Some don't even know what English, any English language. It's their home language is a different language. So you need to keep these guidelines in your mind that, oh, when they come with their home language. Some come with Afrikaans, Sepedi, whatever language. In grade R1, the learners might be learning language for the first time. So foundational skills are very important. They never had the language before. Don't understand the spoken and written. Now, if you're going to teach them, and just teach as if you're teaching somebody who knows the language, I'm telling you, they're going to be resistant. Your learners are going to be anxious. They won't know that language. I think you remember there is a report that came through. I think it's last month, the PELS report. And it talks about grade 4 learners who wrote that report, and our South African learners didn't do well in English. So we are expected as foundation phase teachers to develop them accordingly. Now, purpose of teaching a file is to allow learners to communicate in the language. A question might come and say, identify and describe the characteristics of teaching approaches that guide teachers to teach a file. Now, I would want you also to learn how to identify keywords. You need to know which keywords are there. It says identify, describe. Have an understanding what that means. Have an understanding of what are the characteristics of a teaching approach. What is characteristics? You are required to answer this way. It will be an approach that allow interactive learning and simple process. You remember? Simple process. Remember the guidelines. That allow for conversational and responsive teaching style. They need to talk and talk and talk. And responsive teaching style. And a teaching that would allow maximum communication and learner responses during the lesson. So it means you must bring learning activities that promote oral and practical communication. Learning activities should be kept more oral, practical to promote communication because you are starting to teach that language. your foundational remember. There are what we call contextual factors. Already the word contextual tells you that we're talking about context. A question might arise and say, identify and explain 2 contextual factors that influence learning of FAL and how they impact learning in the foundation phase. Provide 2 examples for each factor. Here, I want you to identify this. It says 2 factors that influence learning. And it says, give examples for each and every factor. Look at the mark. So also when you write an exam or an assignment, check what the mark says, but also read the question with understanding. Okay, I want you to have a look at that. Okay, that was Unit 1. Let's go to Unit 2. Understanding and facilitation of language skills in the foundation phase. It says, understanding and facilitation of language skills in the foundation phase. Acquiring an in-depth knowledge and understanding of how to facilitate language skills in the foundation. You need to have that in-depth knowledge. Now, what are language skills? We have listening, which is a language skills. First skill acquired in the foundation phase. We have speaking, it's a language skill. You achieve articulation and achieved through articulation and fluency. You have reading where you have to decode and identify. So we have to teach them all this, how to decode, how to identify print. Lastly, we have a language skill. Writing is a language skills, and it will take you through stages of learning how to write. Now, if a child and a learner has acquired these language skills, we would say the child has acquired IFAL and is fluent in FIFAL. So for that to happen, you need to know how to develop all these language skills. Listening, speaking, reading, writing. There are the language skills. Listening, it has simple listening, discriminative listening, interpretative listening, creative. When do you say it's simple listening? When do you say it's discriminative listening? When do you say it's interpretative listening? Let's look at this listening. Remember, we said oral activities must promote oral. Now, as they promote oral, when they do the discriminative, they will listen to the sounds. Oh, this sound like this. When you do your phonemic awareness. Which sound is the first one? Which one is in the middle? Which one is the last? They're able to discriminate sounds. Interpretative, they can look at the picture, interpret it. They can listen to the story, interpret it. They can be creative and say, wow, yes, and why? They can be critical and come up with their own conclusion of a story, or maybe tell you a story. So they need to be very creative. And we say you have developed listening skills. And they can only be developed through you by speaking to them. They listen, they follow you, what you have just said, what you always call a phonics, phonemic awareness. They listen to the sound. It's very important. After that, then they start speaking. Give them enough activities on conversations, dialogues, role play, and you're going to learn about strategies of how to teach speaking. Can only do that in foundation phase using pictures. And after that, you remember we said reading, where incidental reading is happening, or reading approach, grade R to 3, shared reading, grade R to 3, group guided reading 2 and 3, paired and independent reading, grade 2 and 3. And you must select appropriate text for the learners of different grades and different levels. There's writing, shared writing, interactive writing, guided writing. You need to know what all this means. Please read about them. They might be in the exam, I'm not sure. But I have this that I want us to discuss. Underline keywords. Please, students are 100% here. Identify 4 types of listening and explain how each type impacts on learning. I would like you to go through these questions. Underline the keywords. Identify, what does it mean? What am I required to do? 4 types of listening. Do I know types of listening? It says explain. Explain how each impacts on language. Now, when you explain as if you are writing to somebody who don't know this. But explain how it impacts on language. Do you understand what it means to impact? Read about that. The other question says, through incidental learning, learners are able to acquire vocabulary and expand the way they understand language. Now here I've given you a statement. My question based on that statement says, substantiate how incidental learning occurs. So you read the statement, it talks about incidental learning, but it says substantiate. So read the questions and underline the key words that will help you to answer. Okay. Unit 3 talks about understanding and interpreting second language policies for facilitation in the foundation phase. Teachers need to promote and develop EFL learning so that it can be used as language of teaching. It's important. Remember, I spoke about PEL report. It's our responsibility in foundation phase that when these learners go to grade 4, they can use this English to learn all the languages, all the subjects that are taught in grade 4. Lessons are determined by an annual teaching plan provided by the Department of Education. Teachers in the foundation phase need to understand and interpret the second. Now, it's important for you to understand the requirements of the policy. Teachers need to adapt both lesson plans and teaching plan to accommodate learners' individual needs, but you need to follow policy. Now, I will tell you that this first additional language teaching guide we have, when you pass, use it as your Bible because it links with the policy so very well. Your lesson plan needs to formulate outcomes which agree with those provided by the department. Adjust per class, per learner because they are diverse. Teachers need to use interactive lesson when teaching file so that learners are constantly practicing. Now, all this, you will also find it in your policy document. And some were asking me, ma'am, where do I get a policy? You download it and understand it because I have a request for you. This is weather. Now, let's say the theme is weather. And the question reads thus, it says, prepare a lesson for grade 1, 2, and 3. I think it's similar to question 2 of your assignment. When the theme is weather, how are you going to prepare that? How are you going to prepare that? How are you going to prepare that? But before I go into that, no, I'm not going to go to that one. I want to come to this one. How are you going to prepare that? We'll come back to it. But let us just talk about the format of the assessment too. FLT is a year module, 100 marks. It will have 4 questions, the same with the examination. You need to read your questions with understanding. And just to look at this. Let me tell you who you are. You are level 7 students. There is what we call Bloom taxonomy. And these are the verbs that we use to ask questions. You need to understand what you are required to and what they mean. I want to show you something. You see, when I develop questions for you, up there is NQF5, NQF6, NQF7. If you look at NQF7, it's about remembering. So questions that need remembering is just 10%. Questions that need you to apply, 40%. Questions that need you to evaluate, 50%. So please make it a point that you understand what it means. Knowledge, I'll just say provide. Comprehension, discuss. Application is very important. Analysis, synthesizing. Yes, let me just go back to this one. Some of you were asking me questions about, ma'am, what do you mean by create? We'll come back to that one. Okay, learn who you are. These are terminologies that we use and what they mean. Go through them. Here's a scenario. Please read the scenario correctly so that you can answer the questions. I'm not going to read it. Just read it yourselves. But this scenario, I added another statement. This scenario illustrates that while decoding is an important necessary skill in reading development, it does not automatically result in enhanced reading comprehension skills. Then I'm asking you, provide 3 reasons why you agree and do not agree with the statement. Read the scenario, it will give you answers. I've showed you and underlined the keywords for you. There is some questions that you can go through. I've underlined the keywords for you. I want to get to this question. Yes, here's a question. Remember, I said, create a vocabulary development activity that focuses on the varying levels of complexities across various grades in the foundation phase. Theme in the foundation phase is body parts for grade 1. Now, create a vocabulary lesson for grade 1 learners. That's what the question says. Skills developed. What do we mean by skills developed? What skills are you developing? Please talk about language skills. Don't tell me that they will know how to wash and then they are clean, or how to eat healthy. If you want to talk about healthy, just say they can read the word healthy. They can speak and explain. Resources. Your resources must talk to the skills that you're developing. Discussion must talk to the skills that you're developing. Presentation must talk to the skills that you're developing. Remember, discussion, you are setting a scene before you start teaching. Activities for learners must also talk to all these items that we have here. So create means a vocabulary development. Create an activity. It means develop an activity. So some of you always ask me about this create. Because you have to create an activity, you're developing an activity. Okay. Sometimes you might have a question that has pictures. Look at the picture. Identify 5 activities that you will see in the picture. Here's an example. You can teach visual discrimination, matching picture and word. You can teach what is first, second, and last sound, breaking words in separate sounds. You can teach as many activities for language. Activities of figure ground perception, understanding, identifying a figure or a picture on the word. So you can do so many when you look at this picture. You get that. Now I'm on the questions. I also got a lot of emails based on question 4. Now, question 4, it says, identify 5 aspects that you could teach based on the topic of seasons. Provide 1 activity for each aspect. Now, your question was, what is an aspect? Identify 5 aspects based on the topic of seasons. Your topic is seasons. So what else can you teach around seasons? You take out subtopics for seasons. Those will be your aspects. And then it goes on and say, create grade 3 lesson on the topic of seasons based on 1 of the 5 aspects. So if you have a subtopic called whatever, you're going to take that subtopic, only 1, not all 5 of them. You write what your outcomes of your lesson will be. You write what learning support materials you'll be using. And you're going to link knowledge, existing knowledge, with what you don't just teach. You say, what is it that they know that I can link with what I'm going to teach today? Then your presentation must talk to outcomes, must talk to follow the existing knowledge, must talk to the materials. Evaluation must talk to the outcomes, and your conclusion must talk to all this. So I hope I've answered you on question 4 and question 2 that I always get emails. Students, writing an assessment, we have a problem of copying, plagiarism. Please don't do that. We are serious about that. Numbering of questions is very important. Please. PDF and upload on my UNISA, it's very important, correctly. When you do exams, follow a invigilated app, but I'll talk about it again. Write neatly and clearly. If you're writing by pens, please, when you upload, when you make copies and PDF and send them, please send them neatly and not upside down or dirty paper or whatever. Please love your work. Read your work before you submit. See if it makes sense. Activate my live account when you communicate and when you upload. Read all the uploaded announcements on my UNISA. For example, academic integrity documents that I'm going to post. Read what you expected to do. Because if you can be found copying, you'll be penalized. You might even be penalized for so many years that you might not, and it's a criminal offense otherwise. So be careful with that. I don't want to lose you as my sister students. I would like to wish you all the best for today. And as you go through this video, feel free to ask questions. I've uploaded a lot of materials. I've uploaded other videos on my UNISA, on my announcement, and on forum. Please communicate with me over that. Thank you and all the best. See you later again. Bye.